This is Miracle Healings, and I am Leslie Williams. And depression is a very, very big subject. Not only is a big subject that a lot of people deal all over the world, is difficult to deal with. And sometimes we feel hopeless. We don't know how to get out of the situation. Today's guest was not only able to get out of the situation, but totally transform the pressure in healing. And not only depression, but also epilepsy. Epilepsy and the pressure in healing. I'm so happy to have you here today in the show, Kristine Hari Shabad. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you in the show, Kristine, because it's unbelievable the amount of contributions and beautiful things you do and how you were able to get out of a place of the pressure and transform your life completely. Can you take us back?
Sure. It's been quite a journey. It started after the birth of my son. He's almost 18, so almost 18 years ago. And, I will say that actually, I believe that it started actually when I was pregnant, because I was an older mom and I was actually kind of just freaked out. The medical profession made me just so scared to have a baby because I was older. I was over 35. I was 38. Mm. And so I never really enjoyed the whole pregnancy. I was so fearful that something was going to be wrong with my child. Oh my God, what if something happened? Did I cause it? And so I never really enjoyed being pregnant. I didn't enjoy the whole childbirth process. And so I remember having him after he was born, and I remember holding him and looking at him. And I knew that he was, my child that I had been carrying for this amount of time, but I really just had no connection to him whatsoever.
Right.
And it just continued. It just continued, and it just continued. And I started to feel more and more disconnected. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have any family, so it was just down here where we were living at the time. And so it was just myself and my husband. And so it was very easy for me to become very isolated.
Right.
And
so at that point, you didn't have an idea that you were dealing with the pressure, right?
No, I had no idea. I thought that this was all just normal part of, no, I had no idea. Nobody ever spoke to me about depression.
Like pregnancy, hormones, and all the, right?
No, right.
I think it's so important to bring this subject in because there's a lot of women who might be having the same situation. And also there's a lot of prejudice when it comes to depression, right?
Yes,
and especially women in the pregnancy and even after giving birth and having a post-birth depression. And
yes,
I would love for you to share more and specifically on that, because I think it will help a lot of our viewers.
Well, for me, it was funny because I had, again, I didn't even, I know this is going to sound naive, but I had no idea that there was even a postpartum depression. I didn't even know really that existed. Right. And I would go, like I joined this what is it, like a mommy group, so you can do stuff with your kids. And I would see these other moms and they all seemed really happy. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Because I'm miserable. Like I'm not enjoying any of this. I didn't enjoy being around them. I didn't enjoy being around I just was so disconnected. I just felt, even though I was in a room full of people, I just felt very alone and very isolated. And, I cried a lot and for no reason.
Right, because there's a lot of releasing of emotions in depression, and
Right.
usually the mind is so confused, right? And hopeless, right? Is a feeling that
hopeless for sure. And I felt like I didn't understand what was happening. And so I went to I went to one doctor, and I remember just sitting in his office, and I'm just crying, just crying. And I'm like, I don't understand what's happening. I don't understand. And he's like, oh, you're just depressed. And behind his desk, he's like, oh, you're just depressed. I'll just write you a prescription. And then he wrote me a prescription and gave me this, piece of paper.
You're just depressed.
Oh, you're just depressed. I'll give you a pill. And so I walk out of there, and I'm just like sobbing. And I'm like, that isn't the answer that I was looking for. I mean, I don't know what I was looking for, but that wasn't it.
Right.
And so then I went to another doctor, and he did the exact same thing. And so then
prescribed another medication.
Yeah, and literally just said, oh, you're just depressed. I'll give you a prescription. And just wrote it, ripped it off, and gave it to me. And again, it just was not what I was looking for. I'm like, that just wasn't it. That just wasn't the answer. I don't even know how to describe it. I knew that just wasn't the answer that I was needing.
So then at that point, we were getting even more hopeless.
More hopeless. I was thinking I was thinking in my head, I'm just going to have to live the rest of my life this way. I'm just going to have to stay in this dark place and just figure it out and live the rest of my life feeling miserable. I mean, I just didn't know what else to do.
Were you taking the medications?
I did not take the medication. I don't do well with medications, so I was very hesitant to take them. And but I will say that I did get really desperate, and my husband, he went and filled one. I don't even know what it was. He went and filled it for me. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have to take this. And you know what? A lot of women do take prescription medication, and they're fine, and it helps them very much. I just knew that wasn't going to work for me.
Right. You knew yourself.
Yes. And so I don't want to, a lot of people, the medication is very beneficial. But he came home and he's like, okay, I got this filled. And I took one, and I could just like feel it in my body, and I got like a major headache, and I just started to not feel good. And I thought, this is not for me. I got to figure out, I have to figure something out, because this isn't working for me. So, I just started trying everything. Like if it didn't harm me, anything outside of anything, Western medicine-y, if it wasn't going to harm me in any way, I was going to try it.
Right.
And that kind of started me in the process of looking at alternative, medicines or healing arts.
And you were still feeling the same way, disconnected, and
I really was. I mean, it went for years. Years. It wasn't till my son, he was diagnosed with epilepsy at age 7. Now, even prior to age 7, he was having seizures, but we weren't aware that he was having seizures. He wasn't having grand mal seizures. He was having what they call the absence seizures, where you just kind of stare.
Yes. You stare. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I didn't, again, might sound naive, but I was not aware. Epilepsy was not on my radar to think that that is what it could have been. Mm-hmm. But then he had a grand mal seizure, and he had 2 grand mal seizures in 1 week. And so then that sent us to the hospital to get testing done, and came back that he had epilepsy. And and then I should probably mention too, on top of being depressed, my son, he never slept. He was not a sleeper. So because he was not a sleeper meant that I didn't sleep. So
so lack of sleep. and the
That makes you
depression.
even more, yes.
Yeah, and I think there's so much judgment
Oh,
and in this regard. Did you suffer any judgment for being
I
depressed?
did. I did. I did. I had other women say to me, this one woman, I mean, this one memory is in my head. And
Mhm.
it was one of the groups that I was with, and she's holding her little infant. My son was a little older at this time.
Right.
And she's like, don't you just love being a mom? Isn't it just the most wonderful thing? And I was just in a mood. And I
Right.
said, I go, some days, I mean, some days I could see why having a child, it was really a wonderful thing. But
Mhm.
honestly, for the most part, I couldn't understand why people would want a child. Like, why would
You were true. You
I was true.
expressed your truth at that moment, and people don't like that. People
She
don't
did
like
not
to
like
hear
it.
the
She was
truth.
not happy with me. Yeah. She took her child like, oh, and she she
Mhm.
didn't talk to me again. And it's so unfortunate because I'm telling you, so many women struggle with depression,
Yes, exactly.
and and they make it so shameful. Like, oh,
Yeah, yeah,
she
and
shouldn't
it's
be
there's
feeling that
nothing
way.
to be shame about.
Nothing.
Yeah.
No. So I think on top of no sleeping and I
Mhm.
just kept sinking deeper and deeper and deeper
Right.
into this deep, dark hole. And so once he got diagnosed with epilepsy, I kind of had a focus. I had something to focus on. Well, how can I help him? He had to take medication because he was having
Right.
these seizures. And so I remember thinking, oh my gosh, he's only 7 years old. And excuse me, and he has to take this medication. And his organs are just developing. His little body is just developing.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, what is this? And the doctor's talking to us about, oh, every 6 months he has to come back and get a blood test because this
Right.
medication is really hard on his liver. And that just sent me into a tailspin because I'm thinking, how is this going to affect his development, his young little body? And
Mhm.
while I knew
And
he had to,
you were still dealing with the depression?
oh yeah.
Okay.
But that took a back seat once
Right,
I had
because
something
you
else
were
to focus on.
focusing on him.
Yeah. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I need to somehow support him. How can I support him um, through this process? Even though he has to take the medication, how can I support his body, his little young growing body? Is there something that I can do to help maybe? I don't know. I mean, I was thinking like, is there anything I can do to help the brain, develop better? Or is there something that I can do to help his organs be stronger? Or, I mean, I was just thinking, what else can I do to help support him through
Mhm.
this process? And that's when I really started to find, sound healing was one of the first things that I found. Um,
Mhm.
and I just found many other modalities to help me support me through the process. And I use
So what was
all of
the
them
first
to
thing
this
that you
day.
found to help you to heal?
It was definitely the sound healing. I went
So
to
that was the first thing.
that was definitely the first thing. Yes.
Okay.
I went to the place where I was taking yoga class, and there was a guy in the room, and he had all these bowls, these crystal singing bowls set up. And I was like, what is this? Tell me about this. I was fascinated by it. And he's
Mhm.
like, oh, well, lay down. And he played these bowls. And I was just, oh my God. It was like,
Right.
oh my
And
gosh, I don't even know how to describe it.
so you were taking yoga?
Yes, I had started going through Kundalini Yoga training.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I had started going through Kundalini Yoga training, and that helped me. Again, as women, I think we don't necessarily, especially if you're a mom, I think you don't necessarily focus on yourself, right? Because
Right.
you're constantly worried about your children or your family, or you want to do what's
Right.
best for them. So
Yeah.
for me,
And
the
there's a
Kundalini,
culture pressure as well that we,
yes,
that so many beliefs that would pass for generations and generations and generations, that we as women, we have
yes,
roles and we have
hmm,
to do this and this and this and that, marry and then have a degree and then have kids before age 30 and blah, blah,
right,
blah.
right.
And it's
It's
so
exhausting.
much
Yeah,
pressure.
so much pressure. And so for the Kundalini Yoga, it was something for me. It was for me. And it made me start to look at my life and the thoughts or ideas that have brought me to this point. Are they true? Have you,
So
I was
how
raised.
So you had a breakthrough to start?
I did. I don't know. You're familiar with Kundalini Yoga?
Yes, I love Kundalini. That's why I want to
Yeah.
ask you
Yeah.
more.
So I had never done any more meditation, mantra, mudra, none of that, right? So this was all new territory for me. But I loved it because I did start to feel better. Like I could
Mhm.
feel something starting to transform in me. And while I wasn't 100% for sure,
Mhm.
I did start to feel like lighter.
Right.
And
So when you were going and you were sitting in the class, can you explain to our viewers and our listeners that have no knowledge of Kundalini, how does it work? The exercises, the breathing, and this connection. Can you and your experience when you were depressed and then start to go to these classes?
yes, well, it was quite a journey. I went through the Kundalini Yoga teachers training, and it's a 9-month long program. And so the process of Kundalini Yoga is this: you go into the classroom, you sit down, and you usually do what they call tuning in, and it's a little mantra that you say to tune in to yourself, to the practice. And then, depending on the teacher, you might do some sort of a short little breathing meditation, we'll call it a pranayama. And then you go into the Kriya, which a Kriya is a set of exercises. And there's thousands of different Kriyas for all different sorts of things. And then it usually finishes up with a meditation. And then, depending on your teacher, my teachers played the gong. They usually did a gong.
Oh.
I know, it was awesome. It was great. A gong at the end of class.
Wow.
Well, let me tell you, those 9 months were the hardest 9 months of my life because I would go. It was it was a Saturday and Sunday class that I would take. And I would just, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I literally would sit in class and I cried for like 2 days. I would
Oh,
just
that's wonderful.
cry for 2 days.
Because you were transmuting
Yes.
all the energy, all the
Yes.
density that
Yes.
were accumulated for such a long time
Yes.
out. You were
Yeah.
there's nothing to be ashamed about. This is beautiful.
Yeah. And
Beautiful.
I would come back home on Sunday and I would be so exhausted because I had spent Saturday and Sunday just crying. We would be doing these meditations. Like we had to do this one meditation where our hands were like in this lotus flower and we had to like look at our hands. And it was a long meditation. It was like a 32-minute meditation.
Right.
And I couldn't even look at my hands for whatever reason. I couldn't look at them. Tears were just pouring down my face. And I just kept breathing. And there's a mantra. People are doing their mantras. But the beautiful thing is you're surrounded by this energy, right? You're surrounded by it.
Yes.
And so it's very powerful.
Yeah. because it is the same intention, the same vibration.
Yes.
And there's another thing that I think is very important. It's that you had also accumulated the density in your body, in your
Mm.
physical body, not only
Mm.
as at the chakras, but also in
Mm-hmm.
the physical body. And the crying, it's
Oh,
a way to release. We need to do that. We
yeah.
tend to, those
Yes.
beliefs. Oh, I shouldn't cry. I
Right.
shouldn't show emotion in public. I
Right.
shouldn't. But then we are doing the opposite. We are creating all this density, right?
Yes. And I had a lot. And I just
Mm.
that 9 months was transformative for me. I mean, it was one of the most it was the hardest thing I had ever done. But honestly, I walked out after those 9 months a completely different person, just a completely different
Healed.
person. Yeah. And it was amazing. So that was really a huge turning point for me to start to feel better. I still wasn't out of the woods 100% yet, but I was definitely on my way. I could see the light. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be an end. I know that it's coming. I can see it now.
It's such a
So
beautiful technique, such a beautiful thing for us to give ourselves, right?
yeah, because that weekend was for me. It was really for me.
Yes.
When I left, it was when I was in that classroom for, I don't know what, 5, 6 hours a day.
Mhm.
I was in that classroom and I didn't think about anybody else except what we were doing, and focusing on me. And
Yes.
again, it's just something that a lot of people don't really ever do.
And then that is love. That
Yeah.
is unconditional love.
Yes.
We're starting to develop this unconditional love for yourself, not putting
Right.
condition. Oh, I have to love first my son, first my husband, first my cat, first, and then me. The last one. That's what
Right.
we were taught as women.
Right. And then there's nothing left by the time you get to you. There's
Yes,
nothing left.
yes.
Right.
And then there's the judgment when we
Yes.
take care of ourselves, but it's all beliefs, right?
Yes.
How
Yes.
beautiful.
Yeah. It was life changing for me. And I mean, I highly recommend Kundalini Yoga. It's
Yeah,
wonderful.
it is.
Um, and then, so back to the story, when I was at the yoga studio, this guy, he showed me these crystal singing bowls. I have one here. And he said to me, he said, well, I'm teaching a workshop this weekend if you want to take my class. I was like, yes. So
Yes.
I took his class and I left there with one singing bowl. I bought a bowl and I just sat, I brought it home and I would sit it in front of me like this. I would just bring it and sit it in front of me. And I literally, and I'm not kidding, I would just play it. I just sat in my room and I would just play it over and over again.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, what can you explain to our viewers what the vibration and the sound, how this beautiful technique help us to heal and how it interacts with us?
Well, I'll do the best I can. We are all vibration, right? Everything is vibration.
Yeah.
Everything is energy.
Everything is
And
energy.
everything, it doesn't matter what it is. And so sometimes when we are vibrating or resonating, let's say if you're not feeling well, let's say if you have a cold, your energy level drops and you're not feeling well, right?
Mhm.
So sometimes when that happens, you need something else to lift you up, we'll say.
Right.
So the bowls, the sound, whether it be, now it can be different for every person. Like my yoga teachers, they played the gong.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you can just listen to really music that inspires you.
Mm-hmm.
I love crystal singing bowls. You know, some people have tuning forks. It varies from person to
Right.
person what
It
is going to
is
work best for them.
right, but the vibration
It's the
and
vibration. And what it does is it enters into your body. You don't just hear with your ears. The
right.
sound penetrates your whole being, all
Yes.
your cells. So
Yes.
isn't that great? So that's why sometimes when people say, "Oh my gosh, I can feel my whole body vibrating." Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And because this is a higher vibration perhaps than what maybe, let's say again, if you're sick, you're not feeling well, depressed, sad. I'm sure many people have been sad and maybe they have listened to music, a song, and perhaps maybe they felt better after they listened to the song, right?
Absolutely.
It's the same principle. It's the exact same principle. So it's going to help raise your vibration to whatever level it is that you're listening to. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, because we, as you were mentioned, we are trillions of cells. We are pure energy. And now, and we feed our body physically, mechanically, but we forget that we are trillions of cells and we are energy, and they need this beautiful unconditional love to, you know, feed them this love. That's why you were saying we feel better.
Yes. And that's also, I mean, that's why you get so depleted, because you just keep putting the energy out. You keep putting it out, and nothing is coming in to help restore, rejuvenate, fill up. And you just become so down, so heavy.
So
right?
You brought it home and you start to play for yourself. Did you play for your son?
Yes, I played for myself. And then my son, he was really cute because, again, he was 7 and he couldn't sit in the room while I was playing it. It was just too much for him. But the vibration, it was too overwhelming, which I found is very common with kids that are have like ADD or even other brain stuff going on. It's just too much. But so I would keep the bedroom door that I was in. I would just keep the bedroom door open and I would just play.
And he was in the other room.
Yeah, he was in the other room playing, whatever. So the sound was still traveling. It was still getting to him, right? And at night when he would go to bed or, try to go to bed, I would put on my Kundalini Yoga mantras for him. And I would have him listen to those. I would put those on and
before bed.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. So they were all in there.
Yeah, because the subconscious mind is listening.
That's right. And he liked those very much. And so during the day, he would get bowl sounds, and then at night he would get the Kundalini Yoga sounds. And
so did you start to see any shift after a while?
It was, well, I will say that, I mean, he was still on medication, right? So it's hard to say if there was a shift, because the medication, of course, is to, the objective is to make the seizures less. So it kind of like numbs, I'm going to use the word numbs, kind of numbs the brain a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a real technical term, but that's what I have found, because he was much more docile or laid back when he was on the medication.
Right.
But we noticed that once we started doing all of this, and it took time, of course, it doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
It takes time.
And I think this is what you brought is so important, because if our listeners are dealing with a situation, and it takes time, but you gotta have faith, right? Repetition, consistency, because in some way, yourself, you reprogram your subconscious mind through Kundalini, right?
Yes.
And it takes a while.
Yeah. I mean, actually, after I went through the 9 months of Kundalini, the level 1 Kundalini, I took, they have a level 2. And where I was taking the level 2, they only did one module. They call it a module. They only did one level 2 module a year. And so I actually continued taking Kundalini for the next 5 years. There were 5 level 2 modules. So they only offered one a year. So I ended up taking it for the next 5 years. So I had that constant feeling for me. I had it for me, for those 5 years. I was constantly getting fed, right? Different information, more information for me to take in, more me.
And no medication.
Yeah, that's I didn't take, and it really worked for me,
Yes, it did.
I highly recommend it. But again, it was not a speedy process. It was not an overnight process. It took those 9 months, those first initial 9 months. That was super hard, a lot of tears, a lot of crying. And I would come home after, I would come home Sunday night from my class, and my husband would go to work on Monday. And then I would be kind of like, and then I would put on my music, and I constantly had my yoga music on during the day, and that just really helped carry me through. Yeah. So I was constantly saying the mantras, singing the mantras, had the music on. Yes. And I really attribute it to being, that really helped carry me through. But that was a process, that was 9 years, and then another 5. I'm not saying you have to do that. That's just what worked for me. Right. To go through the level 2.
But it definitely, it works.
It works. It really does work. It's there's something to it for sure. So, so with him, I just kept, he and I were kind of on the same path, really. I mean, he was home with me all day. I'd play my bowls. He was listening to music with me, the Kundalini mantras. We were kind of doing the same thing. And, it got to a point where we weren't seeing any more seizures. And
he was with the medication.
He was still with the medication. And it's not something that you can just take off. It's like they have to do testing. So we took him back to the doctors.
It's gradual.
Yes. Yeah. And because it's a gradual build up, and then you have to gradually take them off. So we went to the doctors, and he's like, let's do another study and see where he is. And we did. And he's like, okay, I think let's see if we can slowly take you off the medication. And again, it's a process. It took, I don't know, several months.
So that means ECG was better?
Yep.
The results.
Yep. Yeah. And I know, so it was just amazing.
The sound had to have some effect.
I believe totally it did. Totally that it did. Yeah. And
because his brain
we took him off. See, because it affects the brain, right? It's I don't know how it cannot. So and like I said, he's going to be 18. And so he's been off the medication now for, let's see, he was in elementary school. So almost 7 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's what you did. Play the balls and the bowls, and then play the mantras before bed.
Yeah.
Any change on his diet? Did you have him in a special diet or anything?
I know that for epilepsy, they say like having more of a high fat diet because it helps with the brain. I will just say we tried all sorts of stuff. We tried, gluten-free. We did more high fat stuff. We tried everything. And honestly, Leslie, it was kind of driving me crazy because it was stressing me out.
Right.
And I didn't need any more stress.
Right. Absolutely.
So I just was like, I'm just going to have faith And we're just going to eat like regular. We're going to eat however I feel like cooking that night. And
you
so that's what I've done. I trusted. I had faith.
Yeah. So what about the faith in the process, all the process of your healing and your son's healing? How does worked with you?
It's kind of hard, I think, to put into words for me. Well, I would say I was raised in a very not very religious, but in a Catholic family, went to church every week, did all the things the whole Catholic families did back then. But when I started going through my Kundalini Yoga, it made me kind of re-examine things, right? Kind of look at things. And I kind of developed, I will say that for me, growing up and going to church, it really I didn't have a connection with it.
Right. It didn't resonate with you.
It just did not. And so, as far as that goes, I was kind of like, I didn't really have a connection, right? But when I started going through the Kundalini training, I started to develop a connection with spirit, with God. And through the meditations and so I felt closer and a better connection to God than I ever did before.
In your heart.
And yes. And so for me, I don't know if this makes sense to you or any of the viewers watching, but that was how my faith grew. And as I started to see improvement or feel better, or just, those mantras are so powerful.
Yeah. And you felt the faith was in the heart. You were experiencing the faith. This is something that I always touch because I love, and it's incredible. Every healing story, faith is present. It's incredible. And how it is beautiful how people throughout the healing process discover the faith. And usually it's always the same way. It is here in the heart.
Yeah. So, and that's why it's like you feel, for me, I would feel it was almost overwhelming for me. I wouldn't say almost, I would say that it was overwhelming to feel like that much love. Like,
right.
It was very hard to feel that much love. Like, oh my gosh, I'm loved so much. That's just crazy.
And you went through the pressure, right? From a state of fear, anxiety, depression, hopeless to totally love.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. So, to this day, I still have my mantras. He still listens to his mantras at night. I play my bowls. He still doesn't sit in the same room with me, but again, I mean, in the house, the sound resonates through everything.
Right. Yeah.
So,
it doesn't the loving matter. Effect. Yeah. It's so beautiful, your story. It's very inspiring. Very, very. What would you say that was the biggest life lesson?
Yeah, okay. So the biggest life lesson, I would say, so being a new mom, you have a lot of insecurities. You think, oh my God, I don't know. You ask people, people give you advice. But honestly, you have the answers inside of you. I knew that something was not right with my son. I knew something was not right. And I knew it was in his head. Like, I remember saying to somebody, I go, something is not right in his head. Something isn't right. And she says to me, oh, Kristine, don't say that. Like, it was a bad thing to say. Like, I wasn't saying that.
But you have in your gut, right?
I was just saying something isn't right in there. I know something isn't right.
You knew.
I knew. So I would say the biggest lesson is again, it comes down to trust. Trust you.
Yes.
You totally know you have the answers, no matter how crazy it sounds. I say to my family all the time, I know this is going to sound crazy, but we have all learned, no, it doesn't sound crazy, because you're trusting, you're listening to the voice that you're hearing.
Yeah.
You're trusting the feeling that you're feeling.
Yeah.
It's not crazy.
No, trust
So
is
trust.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you have it there.
Yeah. Yeah. And you
Yeah.
had something to live for, right? Yourself, your son, right?
Yeah. Yes. And it's crazy because, I'm thinking that I'm helping him heal. I'm doing everything for him, right? But in the process, I received healing as well.
Right.
So it was wonderful. It was a win-win.
Yes. And the
bonus.
way that the healing came to your life, it's so beautiful.
Yes. It was very serendipitous, if that's the right word to use. It was very serendipitous. And everything is divine. That's another
Yes.
thing that I have learned. Everything really is divine.
Yes.
I say that all the time. It's okay. It's going to be okay because it's divine.
Yeah.
It's going to be divine. It's divine.
And give the credit to the divine, right?
Yes.
I think it even amplified, because as beings living in this planet, right, in this experience, a lot of us had the tendency to not give the credit to, hey, who gave us life, right? Who brought us here? Who gave life to this planet?
Yeah,
which is the divine. I think this is so beautiful that you did. This approach is so beautiful.
Well,
and you received back.
Oh, yes. And every time, the thing is, every time I play my bowls for people, I can't even tell you how happy my heart is when my heart is just so happy whenever, and again, I know that probably sounds silly to say, I'm just staring at my bowls, if you wonder what I'm looking at, because they're right here in front of me. But whenever I play for people, especially for people, I've played for people that are in hospice care, or I've played for people that are in, that have brain injuries. I've played for cancer patients, and it just makes my heart so happy to play for them. Yeah.
To be in service.
Yes.
To be just an instrument and let the divine act, because actually the sound is the divine, right?
Well, it's not me for sure. It's just, I am just there to play and let the sound and the divine come through that. And it's wonderful. And it just makes my heart so happy. Yeah.
It's so beautiful. So if we, you talked on the subject, you touched on the subject, I would love to hear a little bit, and if you can explain to our viewers and the listeners what you will play now in a couple of minutes.
Sure. I have a couple bowls down here. I have, so the bowls are aligned. They are all musical notes, right? And they work with the chakra system. Okay. So it's
we have there in the back.
Yes. I was looking at that picture in the back there. So they work with the chakras, and so each bowl has a note, and it's associated with that chakra. Now, these bowls that I have here, here. Let me see if I can turn. Wow. There, can you see that?
They're beautiful. Wow.
So these two are Alchemy crystal singing bowls, which means they are quartz. Here's a quartz one. Most people are familiar. I think most people are familiar with the frosted quartz singing bowls, which are amazing too. They're amazing. So the Alchemy ones are quartz, and they're infused with anything. They can be infused with crystals, with minerals, with different stone properties. So the beautiful thing about the alchemy bowls is you're getting the sound healing, but also you're receiving whatever property of the stone or mineral or whatever it is that you are playing, which is
Right.
a bonus, right? Because they have
Right.
all different, I mean, it depends on whatever it is that you want. They have them. And they're amazing. The vibration, the sounds that come from them are just amazing. And I love them all. I love them all. I love whether they're quartz, whether they're the alchemy, it doesn't matter to me. I love them all. So I have 4 of them. I have a handheld one here. This is a practitioner bowl, and this is the root chakra. I don't know if you can see the picture on there.
Oh, yeah.
So this is, can you see it? So this is the root chakra, and then this is a crown chakra. So, and then I have a heart, and then I have an E. Yeah, and then I have a solar plexus. So I have all of these, and hopefully they'll come through okay. let me move my mic. Hopefully that's not too loud.
Okay.
So just if you have earphones, put your earphones in, because really that's how they come through best.
Yeah, I do have.
Okay, good. So just sit comfortably and just close your eyes, and I'll just play for a couple brief moments and just
our
enjoy.
Listeners and viewers, you can do the same.
Yes. Take a nice deep breath in and exhale out. Welcome back. I know it was short.
Wow. What an incredible sensation. It's unbelievable. I'm flying.
Imagine like
And
45 minutes of that. It'd be amazing.
wow. Yes. Yes. I felt exactly what you mentioned, the vibration inside. And I felt in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
I felt in my whole body.
Mm-hmm.
And it's incredible. It's divine.
It is
Kristine,
divine.
you are divine.
Thank you.
I'm so happy and grateful to have you in the show. And for us to close, would you like to give our viewers and our listeners a message?
Oh gosh. Just trust in yourself. Trust in yourself and know that you are divine.
Yeah.
Trust that your life is divine, and everything is divine. It's all working out in your favor.
Yes. This couldn't be better. I could spend the whole night with you. Thank you so much for being the show today.
Thank you for
Kristine.
having me, Leslie. Really, it was a real treat for me. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Miracle Healings can be found at www.theselfodyssey.com, on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You look for Self Odyssey. And if you have a healing story, or if you know someone that has a healing story, please get in touch with me via Leslie Williams at theselfartist.com. Once again, thank you so much for watching. And don't forget, life is beautiful.